All righty, welcome everybody. This is the real estate development fall open house. We're going to give everyone a chance to get in and get set, and then we will begin in just a minute. All right. Looks like we have uh, the students participating here. So, hi everyone, my name is Michael Casanza. I'm the Director of Admissions for the School of Architecture and Built Environment. We are so happy that you're here. We're going to have a great program here. John Renne, who's the program director, is going to introduce the program, give you overview of everything that we do here. We have Daniela Rivera Bryant, who is a faculty member who will give her perspective. And then we have a current student here, Joseph, who will talk about his experience in the program. And then we'll give time at the end to ask questions and give answers there. So yeah, without further ado, John Rennie, here's our program director.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this overview of our Master of Sustainable Real Estate Development at Tulane School of Architecture and Built Environment. This is a kind of a nighttime image of our brand new building over here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but off on the right hand side here, we just got into our brand new building. It was like a $50 million renovated historic building. It's just where I'm sitting in right now. It's a beautiful facility. And so I hope that you get the opportunity, in addition to, participating in this webinar, to potentially come here on campus and do a campus visit. And so let us know, because I think you'll be very impressed with our campus, with New Orleans, and with our facility that we're in, the building that we're in. So I am the director of the real estate program and a professor. I'm joined here with my colleague John Huppy, who's the associate director and professor of practice, and John will also be joining here in after I go through the slides. We have a fantastic set of faculty that span both practice as well as research, and several of us, including myself, do both. So most of our faculty, I would say, about 90% of our faculty have very, very significant experience and are actively engaged in sustainable real estate development as we speak. And then several of our faculty, including myself, because I actually wear both hats, are leading researchers in studying issues around real estate development, urban planning, affordable housing, the impact of climate change on cities, and historic preservation, and a number of those other issues. So I'm not going to take the time, right now to go into detail on all of our faculty, but you can go to our website and read up on what everybody does. And we have a very wide range of skills that go from finance to urban planning to real estate development, to AI and technology, transportation and infrastructure, resilience, law. So we really have a really, really wonderful team. And our program was initially set up about in 2012 is when we launched. We were one of the first masters of sustainable real estate development in the country, but also one of the first, programs that offered a 1 year master's in real estate development, period. And it's a 3 semester program. So traditionally it starts in the summer, and you would enroll like in basically the first week of June, towards the end of May is typically when we start with the orientation. And You would have basically you would take 4 classes, in a full time format over the summer, including a field trip that we've historically done to like Washington D.C. and Philadelphia. Um, we also go to other cities as well, and we're talking about maybe changing that up a little bit in the summers to go to some like perhaps London or Paris or but we're kind of in the middle of reformulating a lot of this. And so what I wanted to point out, and I'll talk a little bit more about the potentially upcoming changes, is that we're making it a lot more flexible for part-time students to be a part of our program, even if you don't necessarily have the ability to move to New Orleans. We're in the middle of some university approvals for reformulating this program. And because of that, we can't really get into the details about what the proposed program is going to look like because it needs to be approved by the appropriate committees and administrators at Tulane University. But the content isn't going to change. We're going to be teaching the same stuff we've been teaching, for the last 13, 14 years. So that's what I'm going to get into right now is kind of like what it is that we teach. Fortunately, we're still far enough away that as we kind of go through this approval process, hopefully over the next month or so, we'll be able to share a lot more of the details of what we're thinking. But the key point right now is flexibility and part-time. If you're working, we're trying to design the program to allow for it. However, if you want to just come and knock out a 1-year master's program like we've been doing for the last 13 years, you'll be able to do that as well. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. In order to apply, you have to have obviously a bachelor's degree, and we draw on students from diverse fields. You don't have to have a particular undergraduate degree in any topic. You don't have to have a background in finance. You don't have to have a background in architecture or building. We're going to teach you everything that you need to know. We blend an education that spans business, sustainable design, urbanism, economics, legal issues. So again, you're going to get to know everything that you need to know. And our graduates that come out of this 1-year program are equipped to become effective and influential in a number of different areas. So it's not just necessarily real estate development. Some go into more of a finance role. Some focus a little bit more on the design and construction side. Some go into more on the urban planning side. So it gives you a lot of flexibility if you're not 100% sure exactly like that job that you want when you graduate. Um, and so, as an example, our students have done internships. We call them gigs. And they one of our students, Joseph, who's we'll be speaking to you in a little bit, is currently doing one with the city of Gretna, which is a community here in the greater New Orleans area. And but we've had folks do these gig internships with a lot of developers and public agencies that tackle development, such as the New Orleans Redevelopment Authority or even the New Orleans Transit Authority, architecture firms. So and then of course we've had some research partners across the country, not just based in New Orleans, in many different places. Here is just kind of an overview of the existing program as it stands. It's not going to change all that much. So really in the summer, we kind of tackle the key things that you would really need to learn in terms of real estate finance and sustainable urbanism. And then we have that field study, which is a visit typically to a domestic location in the United States. Again, we're toying with the idea of whether we may go overseas, but basically it's a week where we all travel together. And Joseph can talk a little bit more about his experience on that trip last summer. In the fall, if you decide to do the full-time program, you would take legal issues, sustainable design and planning, real estate finance, and then an elective. And then in the spring, you have your applied urban economics, your advanced sustainable real estate program, directed research, which we are kind of calling our capstone class, and then another elective. So it's a very straightforward program, and we have now over 300 graduates from across the country and different countries beyond the United States. Very diverse educational backgrounds and work experiences, shared interests in environmental, economic, and social impact. So our dean last year. He kind of gave his name is Iñaki Alday, and he gave a very what I thought was a very impassioned, inspirational speech. And I can't do it as good as he can because he has a great Spanish accent. But what he basically told everyone is, listen, you have a lot of choices in where you can do your education, right? If you're interested in making a difference in changing the world for the better, then Tulane is the school for you, because there's a lot of places where you could learn how to study real estate finance, real estate development. We're one of the few programs that focuses specifically on sustainable real estate development. So you're going to learn everything that you would learn in a finance program. But in addition to that, you're going to learn, what makes cities more sustainable, what makes real estate development more sustainable. And that's really important for the current and future age as we get into topics like climate change and the impact on cities, and even AI, and how can AI be incorporated into our society, which is a topic that we are faced with every day now. We have actually a lot of expertise both in the climate side and the AI side. So, for example, one of our new professors of practice, Daryl Glade, has started several tech companies in real estate, and he teaches a real estate technology class. I myself am wrapping up a master's in computer science with a focus on AI. And so those are the kinds of unique skills that we bring to our program. So you're going to be learning some really cool cutting edge stuff that a lot of other real estate programs just don't have. And not just content for the sake of content, but content for the sake of action, content for the sake of experience, and being able to make cities better, more sustainable, and keep up with the trends that are emerging, across our country. These are some of the job titles that students have as they graduate and go into the career. Our program being only about 13 years old, we are just kind of now getting to the point where some of our more, our graduates of earlier years are now getting into the roles of principals, owners, vice president, CEOs, founders, right? And so, this word cloud chart is going to change over time, and is beginning to change, because folks are moving from more junior and mid-career positions to more senior careers. And so, in all honesty, we need to update this. This is a year or two old. So if we were to update this like right now, I think you would see project manager and financial analyst become a little bit smaller, and some of these positions like vice president, principal, associate directors, those are going to become larger as more and more of our graduates in this particular program are out there taking more leadership roles. And that's one of the benefits of our program, is that we really are working to connect our students with alumni. So, for example, in 2 weeks, we're bringing all of our students to the Urban Land Institute conference in San Francisco. And we're going to be introducing all of our current master students to a lot of the Tulane alumni, who are going to lead a tour of some really cool projects in the Bay Area, and have a happy hour, with a lot of those alumni in San Francisco. So students will get to meet all of those. And some of our alumni, have done some really cool projects across different areas of real estate, including affordable housing and fair market housing, new construction, rehab, commercial, hospitality, tax credits. So there's a lot of expertise in a lot of different areas. Um, Folks, have worked on so everything from technology, apps in real estate to working on direct development projects to working on actual development, conservation. So lots of stuff, and here are some development projects that some of our students and alumni have done. John Huppy can tell you a little bit more about ErgoFit, which is a project that he owns and he's been working on. He led, and just to we're kind of wrapping this up, and we'll have kind of some. You'll hear thoughts from the others here with us. Is there? Don't write us off based on the fact that we are a private university and our tuition dollars look to be larger than a lot of public universities. Speaking as somebody that went to public university because I didn't think that I could afford a private university, I did not realize how much financial support was available. We have grants, we have scholarships, we do paid internships, and of course, there's other financial aid beyond our program that the university can tap you into. And so, what I would say is apply and go through the exercise, because what you might find is that the cost of coming to Tulane may in actuality be very competitive, if not maybe in some cases even more affordable than a lot of the public universities out there. And the reality is that the financial aid kind of information comes at the conclusion of your acceptance. And so, get your application in. Don't be, scared by, the tuition dollars you see on our website, because our average students get very, very generous financial packages. And we really want you to be here, and we'll figure out a way to make it work for you. So that way you have the option to come and get a really excellent education here at Tulane. Um, Application requirements, pretty standard application, transcripts, resumes, personal statement, letters of recommendation, and then a TOEFL exam, an online interview for non-native English speaking students. And then some of the key dates, we have an early admission deadline. So if you get everything in before December 1st, we will, I'll let Michael give you the exact date. I think we let you know, what's the date that they're notified by?
Yes, if you apply by December 1st, we plan to give you a decision before the winter break. And then if you apply by a regular application deadline of January 15th, we shoot for mid-February for decisions on that.
Yep, and then we typically have an open house in March, and then April, is when the kind of the final commitment deposits are due, because we kind of launch in, as I said, in May is when we pretty much launched the program. So if you have any questions, this is my email address and Michael's contact email address, and we're gonna kind of turn it over to. I'll hand it over, I think, to Daniela, and then I'll go to Joseph Campagna, who's a current graduate student, and then we'll turn it over to John Huppy, and then answer any questions you guys have. But if you have questions, feel free to enter them in now, so that way we can address your questions as we're going through. So Daniela, thank you.
Thank you, John. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. My name is Daniela Rivera Bryant. I am one of the professors, the faculty for the program. I teach, I'm originally an engineer, and then later I decided to become an economist. So I enjoy practical knowledge very much and find that it's the most relevant in a program like this. In my practice, I work with historic redevelopment, mostly of residential properties. And I also work with disaster management, which is one of the things, the pieces of expertise that I bring to the program. I've been working in disaster management in many cities around the world over the last 20 years. And I also teach a elective class called Cities, Disasters, and Decisions during the fall semester, where you can learn more about disaster management and some international views on it. I enjoy working and being a professor at the program because mostly of our students, people like you, our students are very diverse, come from many different backgrounds, and now our alumni are really making a big difference in the world. So I think that is my biggest legacy that I can leave, and I look forward to meeting you in person. And I think after I introduce myself, I can give the floor to Joseph so that he can introduce himself and tell you a little bit about his experience in the program so far.
Yeah, thank you, Daniela. So my name is Joseph Campagna. I am a current student here in the Sustainable Real Estate Development program. I graduated from LSU and got a degree in environmental sciences with a concentration in sustainability. And so, as John was saying earlier, this program, our student body has such a wide background from financial majors, to architects, students that are actually doing a dual degree with this program, trying to get both the financial side as well as their architecture master's degree as well. He touched a great job on the opportunities that are available outside of the classroom. Actually, right now I'm here at my internship speaking during my lunch break in Gretna, Louisiana. I'm in the Department of Planning and Development, working on rebuilding their downtown area. I think it's a great opportunity that Tulane offers, having this kind of program that gets you your experience that you need, as well as making connections in the greater New Orleans area if you so desire to stay out here. But the summer is a very intense summer. It's 4 classes throughout June and July, and really get you suited for the rest of the year with finance and sustainable urbanism classes that kind of delve into what is a pro forma and what does sustainable urbanism even look like? What does that mean for a building and for a city? And then we get into the fall, and that's where we're at right now. What I love about this program is it's interdisciplinary. What John was saying, so many graduates go to very much different job titles afterwards. We're learning about design and planning, investment strategies. If you want to get into the land acquisition side and learn how brokerage happens, and then there's also a real estate law program, learning what zoning means and how you can work around zoning in your planning. But then also the summer does cap off with a DC and Philadelphia trip this past year. It's a great opportunity. It was also very packed. We met with about 20 different people and organizations just to hear what they have to say about what's going on in the country. We met with the DC Office of Planning. We toured net zero buildings, learning how they operate and the logistics that they have to go through just to make these buildings happen. And then even like SEPTA is Southeast Pennsylvania's transit authority, learning how transit with trains and cars, how does that operate within a real estate development practice? And then myself, I hope to get out of this program a very fulfilling degree, like I said, interdisciplinary. I want to get into the land acquisition side and also historic preservation and rehabilitation. Here in New Orleans, this city's older than the United States itself. I think it's very important. This is a great location for this type of program because of the history of these buildings and what the city has gone through. And then, as John said about scholarships, he's very true about when you apply, you're immediately going to be granted or offered a scholarship. And that was very welcoming, knowing that the school wants you here and they're going to help you make this transition happen. And then also I wanted to touch on life in New Orleans in general. I'm a big fan of this city. I love it to death with its history. Like I said, being older than the country, it's exactly what you're looking for in a real estate development city with post-Katrina reconstruction and the history of the city. There's so many projects that are happening from new and old. It's kind of a playground. You can do what you want with it. And I'm very much open to questions. Be happy to answer anything that you have you'd like to know about the student perspective. And yeah, thank you.
And I just want to introduce John Huppy, and John is the associate director. He's also one of the earlier graduates of the program, so he kind of can relate to both sides of it.
Sure. Thanks, John. Also the John, the other John in the room. Just a quick introduction. I've been teaching in the program for a decade now, and also benefited from being a student in the program a few years before that. Been practicing as a real estate developer. So my ambitions coming out of the program were to not only teach the next generation of real estate thinkers and developers, but also to practice in the field. And I've been very fortunate to have closed about 40 properties over the last decade. And I will say every single deal I've worked on has involved some classmate of mine, a faculty member, or an alum from one of the other generations. So it really has been almost like a family effort to get to where I am in my career uh, today. In the classroom, I teach the real estate investment and strategies class. So I help students learn how to do models, which is an important skill set for the industry, but also how to make decisions on those models. So it's always fun seeing the light bulbs go off across the class when students are finally starting to click on their modeling skills and starting to learn how real estate development finance actually works. So I'll be real short in my introduction, but it's always a pleasure meeting the students. I can speak for Daniela and John Renne and Michael and also Joseph that we really care deeply about this program and the network that we are creating. I was doing the math of the day, probably have well over 1,500 alumni all over the country now from Tulane who are active in the field of real estate. And that's probably selling the numbers short by several thousand, since we've also had even older alumni coming out of our law school and our business school and even our architecture school for decades before that as well, also practicing real estate. So it's a big machine in all the best ways, and we try to make it as family friendly as we can here with your time at Tulane. So John and Michael, I'll hand it back to you guys because I'm sure we're going to open it up to questions next, and happy to answer anything from any of the perspectives that are on the call today.
Yeah. And so I'll ask all of our participants to unmute themselves and show their video. And so this is now a question and answer session for all of you who are watching this webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to submit them in the Q&A function on the webinar. I'm going to toss out a first question right here, and that's really to talk about can we have some specific examples of alumni outcomes of recent alums from this program?
Sure, I can take that on. So John hit it on it earlier that we have students end up in all sorts of fields. When someone comes into the program, it's pretty natural for folks to think of the industry in a very specific lens. They might think of brokerage or real estate development. And even within real estate development, they may be thinking of activity in one small little pocket, like luxury housing or something along those lines. But really, students recognize, and Joseph can kind of confirm this because he had to go through these gymnastics in the summer of us presenting all the different outcomes that we have students who work for port authorities, recognizing that they have massive real estate portfolios. Often, speaking to New Orleans alone, the Port of New Orleans actually owns the most amount of land in the city. So we have former faculty and students who are working for them. We have students who work for school districts on their real estate decisions. We have students who work for government. And of course, we have students who work in the private sector, whether it be through banks, private lending, development. So really for us to try to fit students in a box is impossible. I think the important thing is that they're recognizing they can go anywhere in the industry and be players. I think Joseph hit on it, on some of the tour stops over the summer. And Joseph, maybe reiterate, what were some of the interesting industries that you came across that you weren't thinking about going into the industry, but maybe now have a lot more respect about what they're doing?
Yeah. Michael, if you don't mind, could you turn my camera back on, please?
Didn't realize that that was a thing. Here we go.
Okay, thank
Okay, there
you.
we go.
No, all good. So, like I said, we met with like 20 different organizations within our DC and Philadelphia trip. I think I was just blown away with how transit has to do with how that ties into the built environment. You think that buildings are not moving. Well, people got to move. And so you think about the transit that goes in between them. I was just amazed with that, as well as just the financing and the investment strategies in general that we've learned throughout this past fall with John, actually, the investment strategies. There's so many moving pieces that come into just making a single real estate property happen. And I was quite amazed by all that.
One of the things that one of the growing areas for folks in kind of this real estate development world, and some of our alumni, as well as some of our advisory board members, work for family offices. And so there's been a huge growth in the family office. So it's basically, ultra high net worth families that basically hire professionals to manage their assets and their wealth. And so typically, a lot of large family offices, meaning family offices that have a lot of assets, typically have at least one or sometimes more than one folks that manage their real estate portfolio. So it could just be buying like apartment buildings or shopping centers that generate returns on an investment level. But a lot of family offices now also are involved in getting in real estate developments, and so they may be full-blown developers themselves. They may be providing financing and be a joint venture with other development companies, and so that's kind of a growing area. And so I like, it's just something that you may not think about in terms of where jobs might be located, but that's a kind of a big area where a lot more jobs are growing, particularly in like markets where Tulane has a lot of alumni, which tends to be like the Northeast and Florida, Los Angeles. Like those are also like really like a lot of our Tulane alumni in general. Like we have large concentrations of Tulane alumni in those particular places, obviously all over the United States, but like the northeastern corridor, mid-Atlantic, Florida, like that's where a lot of Tulane alumni live. And a lot of Tulane alumni are involved in development. And so one of the things that John and I are doing as the program directors is creating opportunities for our students to try to get better exposure in those particular markets. So one of the things we'll probably be launching next year is like a weekend in Miami, a weekend in New York, where you could just come and spend 2 or 3 nights and have tours and meet folks who are Tulane alumni, which is important because Tulane alumni have a vested interest in wanting to help current students get plugged into networking and figuring out how to get their first job or their internship or whatever it might be.
Awesome. We had a question come in here that said, can you explain the capstone a bit more and offer some examples of previous project topics?
Yeah, so I teach the capstone class, and basically what I do is a little different than what's been done in the past. So the first time I just started in January, so I'm coming up to the end of my first year. The way I look at the capstone is really it's like you get to be a pretend developer. So you pick a site, and I will take you through the whole entire process of developing that site. And so, what Joseph is going to have to experience next semester in my class is the first part of the class is getting your zoning approval. So, he's got a site, he's got to come up with, his strategy of what he wants to develop. For example, let's say he wants to develop a hotel. He's got to make sure that, he has all of the approvals to be able to build that hotel. And that's, he might need a variance, might need a conditional approval, or he may need a full blown rezone. So he's going to have to go through that. We're going to have a hearing in the middle of the semester, and he's got to go up and just as he would in front of a city council. And we're going to have some faculty that are going to be, the de facto city council, and we're going to, basically either approve, deny, or give him, some kind of a conditional approval, some changes that he might need to make. Then the second half of the semester, he's going to have to take his site and basically put together a development proposal to go out and win investors to invest in his project. So he's got to put together the financing, the pro forma, and then a pitch deck. And at the end of the semester, he'll give that pitch to to the class and to the folks that we bring in, and everyone has kind of some play money, and they get to decide which students' projects they want to invest in. So it's a little bit of a friendly competition amongst the students in the class to see, if they could get their project financed with, kind of the dollars of the investors in the room. So think of it as like a little bit like a friendly Shark Tank sort of a situation where there's going to be a winner at the end. And it's a fun experience. And then the students learn some really cool programs that I teach, what's called Urban Footprint, which is a really cool online interactive GIS mapping program that's got a lot of data built into it, and other applicable real estate programs that they'll be able to use to put their whole proposals together.
Yeah, and John, could you speak to John Huppy? Could you speak to some of the some other previous topics of the capstone?
Yeah, and I'll say all throughout the year, one of our big objectives is to introduce students to various sectors of the real estate industry. So students will have a chance to work on a hotel project. They will have a chance to look at a shopping center, affordable housing, industrial sites, and also on the policy side and the sustainability side as well. So students can throughout the year focus on those topics and learn about green building. And we like to sprinkle a lot of those topics throughout because inherently most development work, that the good development work that's happening now in the world is green and sustainable. Otherwise, you're not going to get your project financed. So it's inherent that if you're looking at numbers and thinking about making a decision, thinking about doing acquisition, you're also thinking about those other sectors as well. So we make sure that that's sprinkled fully throughout the education.
Great. And then question here is, are there any specific softwares taught in the program, such as GIS?
Yeah, so some folks have familiarity with the ESRI products, and so we have access to all of that through Tulane. I actually teach, like I said, it's called Urban Footprint, so it is a GIS software developed that has a lot of pre-built data into it. We also use Policy Map and or Social Explorer. They're very similar programs. Those are some might not necessarily consider them GIS programs, but they are basically geo referenced data where you can access a lot of things like census data and a lot of other big data sources. So those are the main ones that we use.
Yeah, we also learn Argus in our finance class. It's an elective that students can take. Really important, especially if students want to go off to a big market like New York or Chicago and plan to work heavy in the debt equity industry, focused on commercial real estate, because that's mainly where you see platforms like Argus being used. And I won't sell ourselves short on AI too. We have a couple of courses and more on the way that are focused on AI and how you can use AI for data sourcing, you can use it for decision making, and also you can try to disrupt the entire industry through AI as well. So we have faculty who have had success stories who have done that, who are trying to again teach that to the new generation since AI is not going away.
Yeah, I'll give you a specific example of a tool that I, I recently wrote a book chapter about called Chatting with Your Zoning Code. So, let's say you have a site that is 5 acres and it's in SB-2, right, in New Orleans, right? And SB2 only means something in New Orleans. There might be a code called SB2 in Austin or Los Angeles, but it wouldn't mean the same thing. So every zoning code is unique and specific. If you were to open up the New Orleans zoning code, it would be like 750 pages. Some zoning codes are actually 1,500 pages. And so, what I do is, like, I've taught my students, like, you can kind of upload that entire PDF into ChatGPT and then go through and ask it a series of questions, and it becomes very intelligent about, like, what's the maximum building height that I could build, how many parking spaces do I need, what's the setback off of, like, the sidewalk or the lot lines to I could build my building envelope up to. And then you could even ask it more nuanced questions, like, can I reduce my parking if I have a mix of uses between residential and ground floor retail? And it is incredibly intelligent. And so that's like a really good example of how we're using something like ChatGPT to help students learn better how to navigate something like a 750-page zoning code. The other thing I'll mention is that one of the biggest real estate tools out there is called CoStar. It's a very expensive program. We don't. I'm exploring to see, like, what we could do in terms of maybe getting student licenses. But a lot of faculty, like, I have a personal faculty license, and so I'll, like, sit with my students as they're working on their proposed development projects, and we'll be able to access lots and lots of data through CoStar, and then it creates these reports, very large reports on comps and all sorts of stuff. And so then the students can have access to those documents as well, and that kind of data as well.
Awesome. Very interesting stuff to hear about the AI use. Um, Looks like we don't have that many questions coming in, so I'll just say, before we exit this webinar, any parting statements, anything to just kind of wrap up the program and why someone should join?
Well, let me just say, kind of going back to what I was talking a little bit about earlier, and I saw there was I think one comment about kind of like online learning and, in-person learning. So everybody has different learning styles. Some people prefer online learning because it creates flexibility. Other people like to be in a classroom because it gives them, kind of that, I guess, accountability. Without going into exact details, what I can tell you is that we are working really hard to try to create a balance between kind of showing up in person and having the flexibility of some online education. And so just a real quick sneak preview of what that may look like. And again, I can't tell you whether this is going to be in place for the next academic year or the one after that. So if but basically the idea is we will pretty much guarantee that all of our courses are going to meet synchronously every single week. So even if we do an online course, it's not going to be asynchronous. It's not going to be, looking at videos and doing modules, and you're going to be expected to show up every single week. We are going to have mandatory in-person networking opportunities, like the trip to Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, like coming to New Orleans and being involved in kind of like rolling up your sleeves, boots on the ground experiences. We've been looking at all of the various programs around the country, both in real estate and also in other areas like MBAs and things like that. And so we are kind of trying to put together the most cutting edge experience that allows you all to have the ability to do it full-time in 1 year or part-time over multiple years, balancing flexibility with kind of live synchronous education with flexibility of doing it remotely from another city with having certain requirements of showing up in person for intensive experiences and building that face-to-face connection between the instructors and the faculty and the students and then the peer-to-peer students. So we'll be able to share more information probably with you most likely in a month or two, but I just wanted to give you kind of a big, preview of what we're looking at. And again, everyone has their own preferences and desires. And we're just trying to create a unique program that will appeal to a wider set of students and be able to preserve the ethos of having that face-to-face networking that we think is so important to the Tulane education.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Thank you, Daniela and Joseph and John, for participating. If you have any questions and follow up, we will send an email after this with some more information. So feel free to reach out. Thank you all for coming and have a great day.
Thank you.